Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to session 5 of Business Strategy. Uh, so please uh, listen to the session 5 slide. We will continue from where we left off last session. We were talking about internal analysis. So uh, the we want to talk about the core self-confidence, integrity, the capacity to deal with uncertainty, complexity, willingness to hold people and themselves accountable for their work. So basically, in the internal analysis, we were comparing the idea of external and internal analysis, how SWOT analysis is divided to two major parts, internal and external, where opportunities and threats would be external issues, and then strengths and weaknesses would be basically internal issues. So as a manager, as a leader, as a strategic manager, or as a person in charge in your company, you'll actually have you have to deal with your employees, and in that respect, you need to have courage. You need to be brave enough to face the issues. Sometimes you're the only one who needs to make the decisions, so you got to be brave. You got to be able to take the responsibility. You need to be confident enough. So when you make a decision, you need to have confidence in yourself, in your company, in your employees. You can survive that challenge. You need to have integrity. Integrity is something that a lot of new managers and not a lot of managers of today are not necessarily following. Integrity is following your values, sticking to them, and trying to be responsible and ethical. Besides being successful, because a lot of times being successful might need for you to have to bend the rules, which is not necessarily the most ethical thing to do. The capacity to deal with uncertainty and complexity. A lot of management, a lot of leadership is when you are a lot of times when you're dealing with management and leadership is the time you're dealing with uncertainty, with risk, with instability, and especially internal analysis is all about how to stay stable and try to deal with complex issues when you face them and treat them in a way that from the outside no one will feel and sense that uncertainty in your company. You need to act as if those are not happening to your company. You got to show and give a projection and picture to the customers that your company is very stable and all these issues and challenges are not things that will change the strategies or the way that your company works. A willingness to hold people and themselves. Please mute your microphones again and again. Please make sure your microphones are mute. And if you want to talk, you can absolutely turn them on. But please make sure your microphones are mute. Okay. And then willingness to hold people and themselves accountable. So this is also very important. You will try to basically be accountable, be responsible for what your job is. Don't try to just pass the blame game to others. Don't try to blame others when there's a mistake you make, when there's a problem. Try to take ownership of that problem and try to fix it instead of just passing it on to others. And also expect some accountability from your employees as well. So it's not just all about you being accountable, and the rest of the employees just ignore their responsibilities. It's all about everyone. Every single person in that company needs to be accountable, needs to be responsible for what they're supposed to do. And if there's some discrepancy, they got to make sure they'll perform accordingly. They'll fix the problem and take the ownership of the problem. Okay, looking at this chart gives us a good overview of what's going on. At the very bottom, if you look, you have resources. Resources could be tangible or intangible. So basically, the resources that you're dealing with, sometimes they're tangible, like the physical items. But a lot of times they're intangible because they're like values or brand names or a lot of stuff that are not necessarily tangible. They're not physical for you to hold them and sense them and see how they look. Sometimes they're just intangible resources. So as a company, you will work on those resources, either tangible or intangible, and you create capabilities. So the first step when your company is moving forward, when your company is doing something rather than doing nothing, is creating capabilities out of resources. So working on resources and to come up with capabilities is your first step. Then out of capabilities is where you come up with core competencies. So core competencies are those competencies that you're good at doing. So if your company is good at strategizing, like sales techniques and basically creating certain chips that are used for tablets, so to speak, that's your core competency. Your core competency could be a great management consultancy. You're the best management consultant in the region. You will give very practical, to the point consultancy to companies who are experiencing any kind of trouble, and you will help them fix any challenge. So that could be a core competency. Your core competency could be being the best publisher, using the best publishing techniques and machinery, and producing the finest quality, published materials. So all of these could be your core competencies. It's just focusing on those capabilities and being the best, or just using it as one of your most strongest, basically, skills. So basically that is core competencies. And then the final step here would be discovering core competencies. You as a company, you as a manager on top of a company, or you as an employee of the company, you want to make sure you help the company discover core competencies. You want them to understand and find out what are the core competencies out there. Sometimes it takes a while for a company to tap on their resources and get the capabilities, but and then make it core competencies. And then so discovering core competencies is just like discovering a map, a roadmap, and find out where you want to go. So as we move along and we move forward from capabilities to core competencies and discovering core competencies, it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. So it will be more difficult to change capabilities into core competencies. It might take forever for a company to do that, but a company could do it in the first year. So it all depends how much focused you are, how much effort you put into that factor, how serious you take it. so that you can do it. So all these factors are really important, and all these should happen for a company who is coming up with a great internal analysis, with a great internal and strategic advantage. So that is very important. Are there any questions so far before I move to the next slide? Okay. Let's focus on the resources. Okay, one question. Let's go back. So the difference of resources and capabilities. Resources are the primary step, just your tangible and intangible basic materials. Like, let's say when you're a factory producing, let's say, mouse pads, those huge plastic materials you get in order to work on them and then create your pads, those basic initial materials are your resources. And then still, those are tangible resources. And then intangible resources is like your management skills, your brand name, your image, and all that. And then capabilities is your ability to change that plastic into a certain like product, like how you will cut those basic initial materials and then cut them into like 2 by 1 inch like size of pads, and then your capability of coloring it and your capability of marketing it. These are all your capabilities. And then your core competency would be when you're the best in designing, let's say. You will be the best designer of the pad, so your designs would be very unique and they'll stand out. So your core competencies, you'll discover them. You'll find out and you will create core competencies from your capabilities as your first step. But then you will not stop there, because if you have 1 or 2 core competencies, you just don't want to stay there forever, because those core competencies could soon be copied by everyone, and then you're not any better from any other company anymore. So you need to find out more core competencies. That's how you discover new ones. So initially you will find out about some of your core competencies, or at least 1 or few, and then after you master those, you try to come up and discover new ones. You're welcome. Yeah, Apple is a very good example of a very strategic company. The way they started, the way they basically applied all these theory to their everyday work is a phenomenal example. So discovering core competencies does not necessarily mean doing research. I mean, it involves doing research, but discovering core competencies is basically and simply mean that coming up with new core competencies. That could be the result of your research and development. That could be the result of working hard on a project to come up with a new skill or a new whole idea within your previous competencies. So it's not necessarily just the research. It could be actually a project. It could be actually hiring new people. It could be actually tapping on and using certain skills of your staff that already are working there. So discovery covers a lot, and it's not just doing research. in a sense, you're right, Mr. Summit. It's continuously discovering new changes in the products. Changes meaning those new skills, but please keep that in mind that by competencies, we're talking about those skills and performances and abilities that you're good at doing. So let's say if you are a company, let's say you're an NGO, removing poverty from certain cities and certain regions. So your core competency is when you have certain skills that helps you stand out compared to other companies like you. What makes you different from other companies? That's the best question. That's $1 million question to ask when you want to find out what exactly is meant by core competencies. Okay. So let's get back to resources. The resources are the sources of a firm's capabilities. Again, so the resources are the primary source where you get all those materials you need that are broad. Resources are broader. So the closer you get to core competencies, you're more focused now, and you're not as broad as you started from. Cover a spectrum of individual, social, and organizational phenomena, and alone do not yield a competitive advantage. It's important that resources could be given to anyone as long as they have capital and can purchase for certain reasons, like environmental, societal reasons. If they have access to those resources, resources does not mean anything. Just having those resources is great, but there's a lot involved for you to be able to change those resources to capabilities and hopefully later on to core competencies. So resources are a firm's asset, including people, value of its brands, represent inputs into a firm's product. So you have capital, you have the skills of employees, brand names, financial resources, and talent management. Then resources could be tangible and intangible. We talked about it. So tangible is like money you have, like physical resources, technology and machineries, and organizational resources. And then intangible resources are like human resources, their innovation, their reputation resources, all those that are not necessarily tangible. So as you can see, resources could be either tangible but intangible. But what is common between those two is that when it comes to resources, you are basically focusing on the initial primary stage materials, and they're not necessarily your advantages or capabilities or competencies. Those are the step one. You start with those and try to create those afterwards. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So again, tangible resources. We talked about financial resources, like your ability to borrow, and borrowing capacity is one of your financial resources. It's important to understand the concept of borrowing, which not necessarily exists in a lot of countries. Borrowing in the United States is very important. So borrowing, line of credit, all these are part of your assets, part of your primary resources. So your ability to borrow, being qualified, and having the credit required to be able to borrow money for your company is actually very huge. So basically, U.S. economy works a lot on credit. So the way the economy expands and actually you do stuff that you wouldn't be able to is by using the credit that is given to you. That gives you extra money available just by using your credit, your ability to borrow money and then pay it in a process or in a proceeds of some years and with certain interest rates. So that money that you borrow will add to the money that you initially have. A lot of companies that start from scratch, they wouldn't be able to if they did not have some credit and borrowing money available to them. Then organizational resources. The firm's formal reporting structure and its formal planning, controlling, and coordinating systems. So you have organizational resources. You should be able to have some certain formal reporting structure, and then formal planning, controlling, and coordinating. Then physical resources, sophistication and location of a firm's plant and equipment. And then access to raw materials. These are your physical resources. Then technological resources are stock of technology such as patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. I see that Mr. Zormati is coming up with 8 UN core competencies: communication, teamwork, planning, and organizing, accountability, creativity, client orientation, commitment, continued learning, and technological awareness. Very good. I believe that's where you work. So maybe others would like to share some of their core competencies with us as well. So we know patent is when you get the trademark or the copyright for something. So when, let's say, when you publish a book, or basically normally patents is for ideas or some innovating strategies or innovations. So when you come up with an innovation, you get the patent. So everybody who wants to use that idea has to get your permission, and normally to get your permission, it requires them to pay you first. So that's what is meant by patent. But okay, so who else wants to give us his or her side of core competencies? I mean, Mrs. Ormati came with the UN core competencies, even though we're talking about resources, but maybe that's a good idea to have you also mention some of your core competencies. Any volunteer? Okay. Since there's no volunteer. Yeah, borrowing capacity, I was talking about it, is your ability to borrow money, having credit available to you so you are able to borrow money for your own business purposes. I mean, so when you have a business, you have certain money available to you. That's great, but you still could use some borrowing capacity, being able to borrow extra money on top of your company's money. So that's actually extra capital that helps you move forward. So, and then paid back through the process of a few years via with interest rates. Okay, so let's move forward to the next slide. Intangible resources. So let's talk about intangible resources. So intangible resources, as discussed earlier today, are those resources that are not physical, are not sensed or felt. They are basically like your knowledge, your trust, your managerial capabilities, your organizational routines, or your innovation resources like your ideas, scientific capabilities, and capacity to innovate. And finally, reputational resources like reputation with your customers, perception of product quality, durability and reliability, brand name, reputation with suppliers for efficient, effective, supportive, and mutually beneficial interactions and relationships. So you can see these are not physical. These are stuff that actually are dealt with every day. These are intangible resources. They're still resources, but they're not tangible. These are from other aspects. These are intangible. Some of them are never felt. Some of them are are just for you to find out and use, and are not necessarily physical, but they're still important. And intangible resources these days. And please, again and again, mute your microphones. Make sure your microphones are on mute mode, so it will not interrupt the okay? So these are intangible resources, and I was explaining how nowadays intangible resources are even more important than tangible resources. I mean, you could have the money, you could have the borrowing capability, but if you do not have any ideas or scientific capabilities or knowledge or trust or reputation with the customers, you're not able to do any business. I mean, because just the capital, just the money is the first step. Okay. So the capabilities again. Part of firms' capacity to deploy resources that have been purposely integrated to achieve a desired end state. So this is again capabilities when you work on your resources, no matter tangible or intangible, and you create something of value. So emerge over time through complex interactions among tangible and intangible resources. Often they're based on developing, carrying, and exchanging information through the firm's human capital. So you want to exchange information and knowledge. Capabilities are often developed in a specific functional areas or as part of functional area. The foundation of many capabilities lies in the unique skills and knowledge of firms' employees. So a lot of these capabilities that you're talking about comes from your skills and knowledge, and that the source of it is the employees of the firm, the functional expertise of those employees. So how functional they are, that's also important. Any questions so far? Any comments or questions before we move on? Okay. So, are there any questions before we move forward? And your microphones are not mute. Please just unmute them when you want to ask a question or talk. Otherwise, please make sure they're mute. I cannot just go chase around and find out whose microphone is on and then mute it. Please you yourself are.
به خاطر پلاستیکش قبول نداشتیم. جور میگیره خیلی خدا بس.
Finally, you're back. Somebody's microphone is on. Again, please make sure your microphones are mute. Okay, good. So let's move forward. So we have functional areas like distribution, human resources management, information system, marketing, and then we have capabilities. So functional areas, we have distribution, we have human resources, MIS, and marketing. So how would they turn into capabilities? So effective use of logistics management techniques. So you have the distribution as a functional area, and then in order to create some capabilities is for you to use logistics and management system. And then human resources, motivating, empowering, and retaining employees is a capability. Effective and efficient control of inventories through point of purchase data collection methods is also a capability. Effective promotion of brand name is also a capability. Effective customer service is a capability. Management is innovative merchandising, ability to envision the future of clothing, effective organizational structure, and when it comes to manufacturing, design, and production skills, yielding reliable products and product and design quality. And then miniaturization of components and products, innovative technology, development of sophisticated elevator control solutions, and rapid transformation of technology into new products and processes are all basically capabilities. So firms that have done that, if you look at the very right-hand side, is like Walmart, Microsoft, are good in capabilities with regards to distribution, marketing. Then you have on the effective customer service side, the Gillette, Polo, McKinsey, Nordstrom, Selection Corporation, and then you have on the management and manufacturing capabilities, you have all those names, Gap, Sony, Caterpillar, and so all these are simple samples and examples of capabilities. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. So since there are not a lot of questions out there, let me just start with a video that I want to show you guys. It's about a guy who interviewed Steve Jobs about his success. He's going to go over some of the important aspects of their success. So among those, you will see the resources they had and their capabilities and how they created core competencies out of that. So this should be a good example. I want you guys to just listen carefully, because that's a good example and it helps you guys understand and internalize these examples. So let's just go ahead and
Bruno, a warm welcome to you. 1998, you were sitting down with Steve Jobs. You were endeavoring to get to the heart of what Apple's strategy was, and instead you got a response as to, well, I'm going to wait for the next big thing. How surprised were you when that was what came back from Steve Jobs?
Carson, that was a very surprising response. I was coming off of interviewing 30 or 40 technology executives at the time, and they gave me fairly standard answers to my questions about what makes for success in your industry. And generally speaking, the answer was there's some kind of change. A new technology appears, and the first company to get a hold of it successfully has a long run. And then I would ask them, well, what are you guys doing? And they would say, well, we're making alliances, we're putting software in a firmware. They're basically doing what I would call doorknob polishing. And then I spoke to Steve Jobs, and I said, you know, you saved Apple from bankruptcy, but you still got 3 or 4% of the market. You're obviously not going to be the desktop company. What are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to wait for the next big thing. And you can see that as I saw that as an amazingly clever response, because he understood that the technology comes in waves and changes, and it's predatory response. It's like you have to imagine a predator hiding in the bushes and waiting for the fat elk to come by, and that fat elk for him was iPod, and then iPhone, and then iPad. And these things, they were what he was looking for. They got him out from under the Microsoft, Intel world and into a place where he could fashion his own game. And that's what he had been looking for.
And yet, would that same approach be possible all these years later, given heightened shareholder expectations, if not activist responses to underperformance from where you sit?
Well, shareholder expectations have always been there. You're not going to get rid of them. If you take them too seriously, they can drive you insane. The real expectations are that you don't surprise people horribly. You don't say, we're going to do this, and then come out here, because it's a sign that you don't know what's going on. There are plenty of companies that can manage for the long term. Boeing can put in billions on the next aircraft, and then the stock price doesn't tank. But they trust Boeing to do a reasonable job of a long-term expensive project. But there are many companies that don't have that trust, and so they get in trouble. Steve Jobs won that kind of freedom, partly through his executive power, partly because he just ignored the stock market. Today, a guy like Jeff Bezos at Amazon has pretty much the same attitude. He says, I will invest money. Sometimes I will lose money. Sometimes I will make money. If you don't like it, buy another stock.
I mean, those are outrageously successful companies that you've just cited. But equally in your own book, you've acknowledged, unless collective ruin is imminent, a change in strategy will make some people worse off. And that's kind of the paradox of a lot of this, is it not?
We, as humans, in the current way we're structured in society, we rarely make strategic changes unless the wolf is out the door because a real strategic change is a choice to do this and not this. And the people who are involved with or interested in or connected with the thing that's being pushed off the table justly scream loudly, complain, but nevertheless, strategy is about focusing your resources on the most critical issues. And if you can't do that, you don't have strategy. Now, Carson, in most businesses, there is a drumbeat of budgeting. And the enemy of good strategy in most governments and most businesses is this quarterly, maybe monthly drumbeat of the budget. And then at the senior management levels, they extend the budget to 3 years, to 5 years out in a drumbeat. And they call it strategic planning. You look out 3 to 5 years at your budget. Now, that's not strategy. That's financial forecasting. But it gets called strategy.
And yet back on your book, you've acknowledged that once you're in that strategic paradigm, as it were, the job, quote, of the leader is also to create the conditions then that will make the push effective to have the strategy worthy of the effort called upon. Just where are we at with leadership on that score?
That kind of leadership is grown through people doing tough things. If you're looking for a leader who can do that, first of all, you're looking for someone who's done something hard, something difficult, who's been through a certain amount of fire and has succeeded at it. And then you need to give that person some power. They have to have some discretion to choose. Those are the conditions that you have to set up. If you look at Jack Welch and his enormous changes he made at GE, the amazing thing, first of all, is he did it without there being a crisis. But the board backed him. Somehow, and this is a secret story that none of us quite understand, he got the power to drop brands that were 100 years old, to close divisions. He got this extraordinary ability to act. Lots of companies, when someone starts to do that, there are phone calls at the night, there are the Congress people call in, and you're blocked. And he got that power. And so the power is necessary to change things, to move in a new direction. Typically, we don't. Here in Australia right now, we're worried about commodity prices and the growth in China. And all these things are fairly foreseeable. Prices don't always keep going up every year, and growth doesn't go up every year. But when it begins to happen, it feels like a surprise. And the stuff that should have been done in preparation wasn't done. And Australia's a lot better off than the U.S. right now. The U.S. has got huge problems because we didn't anticipate a time when the growth wouldn't always be pleasant.
And you come here with an expectation from clients that you're actually going to do something more than just leave them hanging, right? I mean, you've got to put something definitive out there for them to act on, surely.
Well, when the exchange rates fall, because right now you're in a Klondike economy. Prices are high, exchange rates are high. The standard of living of Australia, actually from the time I was first here 6 years ago, it was lower than the U.S. Now it's higher than the U.S. That's the impact of your boom. And the standard of living is higher, partially because imported goods are cheaper. How do you turn that and invest it in human capital and infrastructure and increases in productivity? And that's a serious question. The areas in which Australia probably needs to pay attention are its high value, high human skill services. It's consulting services, it's financial services, it's insurance services. These are areas where it's losing share, actually, to Singapore, Hong Kong right now. And that requires infrastructure. It requires places for people to live. It's interesting, if you look at Canary Wharf in London, where London was set out to build the physical infrastructure and set aside the housing for the fairly well-to-do people that would live there. difficult set of choices, because in a society where most people aren't that well to do, to have the government actually set aside resources for people who are bankers could be a political hot potato. And yet that sector is ultimately perhaps the driver of sustainable advantage and growth here in Australia.
It's a bit of a cop-out culture that we are forever falling back on, criticizing government for not putting in place the right settings for business to thrive. And in fact, businesses that have the will and the strategy will just get on regardless.
Governments have a huge problem because they can't focus. They are in the business of doing so many different things that they can't say, well, we're going to drop everything, but yes, they can't do that. And so to the extent that they have strategies, it's going to be in different areas. They're going to have education strategy and a defense strategy and a social services strategy and so on, to the extent that they are. The thing that really helps the government, that makes a difference, is for them to do a diagnosis of the problems that they're facing. So, for example, Los Angeles school systems, which I write about in the blog, it's been in trouble for 35, 40 years. Right now, 40% of the students don't graduate high school. There's lots of remedies being circulated around, but you can't have a remedy unless you know what the problem is. So the diagnosis of the problem is essential. People don't like to talk about problems. They don't like to say, here's the disease. But unless you do that, well, you're just basically throwing money at things and hoping something will change, which might make sense 25 years ago, but we've done that, and it doesn't work.
Money would seem to be the great panacea when it comes to a central bank response globally right now. Buoys everyone up with optimism short term until what? The dust settles.
Yeah, the thing that's affecting the world right now is everybody borrowed too much. So we're out of the level. Here in the United States, we have legislation to regulate financial services. But it could have been a one-page document. It could have said you don't lever up more than 15 to 1, and you don't ever loan anybody more than a certain percentage of home value. Basic, simple rules to be etched in the marble of the door of the page. You don't need 2,000 pages of regulation. So we're in a deleveraging economy. The Federal Reserve in the United States right now is engaged in the beginnings of QE. They're obviously simply trying to reignite it's driven by consumption. If you look at that, it's driven by the big drivers of modern economy is open consumer credit cards, equity level. But right now in the United States, the Federal Reserve is opening up QE.
Please mute your microphone again.
Making it easier
Interrupting.
For the house, making stock prices higher so that people feel wealthier. I think it's a mistake. I think that the United States had a consumption-led boom for 25 years. And that boom was fueled by increased borrowing. Credit cards is a great source of economic growth. Go to a country where there's no consumer credit, you introduce consumer credit, you introduce 30-year mortgages, consumption goes up. You introduce home equity loans, consumption goes up. But there's a ceiling now. You hit that ceiling, and you're tapped out. And then people come along and say, let's get people to borrow even more as a solution. That's not the solution. You're just going to reignite a consumption boom that you can't grow the economy by simply borrowing more. Right now, people are trying to do that on the justification that it's a fix to the problem of employment. And then if employment goes up, but you know they're not. So you're going to create another bubble, and there's going to be another bust.
Okay, so so that was a useful talk. Let me put the speaker back on. Okay. Okay, so getting back to the topic, if you've listened carefully, you will see a lot of those topics that you just talked about in practice. There is a microphone going on. Somebody has not muted his or her microphone again. Please make sure your microphones are mute. I mean, please, please, please. I'm hearing noises, and this is interrupting the session. So please mute your microphone. Okay. So okay, so let's continue. The noise is really crazy. Okay. Okay. So the video, as if you have listened carefully, it was talking about all those concepts we talked about the capabilities of those companies. He talked about Apple in the beginning and how Apple used their innovation actually to stand out. And I mean, the video was filmed back like before Steve Jobs passed away, like so a couple of years ago, maybe minimum. But it was a very good example of how companies use their capabilities, use their resources, create capabilities. Talked about tangible and intangible resources. Talked about how companies can use those as strategies and stand out and succeed in their business. So on changing, yeah, he talked about change and access to technology, innovation. So talked about the introduction of credit and loans and all those extra breaks that customers got with the introduction of all those stuff. So these are all important examples on how to tap on and use those strategies we were talking about, how to use those capabilities and be successful, how to create capabilities, and from capabilities create core competencies. So it was a very useful video explaining a lot on like practical examples. So let's move on. Core competencies, resources and capabilities that serve as a source of a firm's competitive advantage. So distinguish a company competitively and reflect its personality. So you got to distinguish the companies competitively and reflect the personality of that company. Emerge over time through an organizational process of accumulating and learning how to deploy different resources and capabilities. Activities that a firm performs especially well compared to competitors. So basically, core competencies are those performances, those skills that you do better than other companies. So when you're focused on a certain competency, for sure you do it better than others. And then activities through which the firm adds unique value to its goods and services over a long period of time. So you want to add value to your goods and services. So all these competencies are for you to add value to what you do. So the 4 criteria of sustainable competitive advantage are valuable capabilities. So help a firm neutralize threats or opportunities. Rare capabilities are not possessed by many others. Costly to imitate capabilities. Historical, unique and valuable organizational culture or brand name. Uses of ambiguous causes. The causes and components are unclear. So we have social complexity, interpersonal trust, and friendship among customers. And finally, no strategic equivalent. So we have, as you can see here, for sustainable competitive, we have talked about sustainable competitive advantage. We said any company has to have a competitive advantage. So that's what they do better than others. That's what they're doing best. And also, it has to be sustainable. It means that they have to continuously have and use that competitive advantage. So the 4 criteria here is, first, you need to have valuable capabilities. We talked about capabilities that are created out of resources. First of all, they need to be valuable. Then it will help you and your company neutralize threats or utilize opportunities that are coming from external environment. Then rare capabilities. There are capabilities that are only available to you after all you've done. You'll have some certain basically capabilities that are only available to you. They're costly to imitate, and then the uses of relationship, and then finally non-substitutable capabilities. There's no strategic equivalent for that, and it's only unique to you. So value chain analysis. So now we're getting to a point that we want to talk about value chain. We have talked about the idea that the firm is actually creating value. You're all the time trying to add value to your products, to companies, to customers. You want to add value. It's not just you're selling the product or service. You're actually adding value, and that's what matters. So it's very important to understand that in the value chain, because that's where you create value for the customer. So you understand their cost position, identify multiple means that might be used to facilitate implementation of a chosen business level strategy. Primary activities are a product's physical creation, product sale and distribution to buyers, the product service after the sale, and support activities provide. I hear some noise again. I mean, please make sure your microphones are mute again and again. Okay, so now we were talking about primary activities. Okay, value chain is inclusive of your primary activities and support activities. Primary activities are those major activities you do in your value chain. I mean, it's frustrating. Please, guys, mute your microphones. I mean, check your microphones and make sure they're muted. So, product physical creation. First of all, creating that product in itself is the step number 1. That's one of your primary activities. Product sale and distribution to the buyer. So when you create that physical product, then you want to distribute it and send it to the customer. And the product service after the sale is done. So first you distribute and then you want to sell. Then support activities are the support necessary for the primary activities to take place. Okay? Are we okay so far? Any questions or comments? Support activities, we are talking about marketing, we're talking about logistics. We'll cover that in detail in the next slide, actually. I mean, the next few slides that I will show you in detail. The value chain business develops products and services step by step with each function along, adding some sort of value. Yeah, in value chain, in every single step, you're adding a value. So it's just a value-adding process and step and map or guideline, if you will. So value chain shows how a product moves from raw material stage to final customer. So step one is the raw material, and then you try to get it to the final customer at the end. So to be a source of competitive advantage, a resource or capability must allow the firm to perform an activity in a manner that is superior to the way competitors perform. So basically, in your value chain, you want to make sure you perform that activity in a way that is superior to your competitor. And you perform a value-creating activity that competitors cannot compete. So you want to make sure the competitors are not able to compete against you. So this is actually the value chain. Look at here. We have the primary activities and you have the support activities. The part that says operation, first of all, the operation is where you create the physical product out there. So the creation of the product or service is your operation. So that's the step number one. Create the product. Then you use the outbound logistics to send the product out to the customers and clients. Then you need to do some marketing and sales, and finally the service. These are the major, basically, and also inbound logistics. We don't want to miss that. Inbound logistics is for you to bring in the material. So actually the step zero, the first step even before operation is to bring the materials, the resources, if you will, to the company using shipping and all that. And then you do the operation on the materials, create the product, and then you send them out, outbound logistics, do the marketing and sales, versus sell and make money, and then service, create services. Then you on the left-hand side, you will see all those other parts of a firm. So basically, as you can see on the left-hand side, there are more of supporting activities. So the procurement, which is the solution part, like the direct or indirect solution, you're trying to find the best and the most cost-effective way to produce your products. So procurement is normally when you use the most cost-effective way in order to create that product. That goods or service should be created and acquired in a most cost-effective way. So that's what we mean by procurement. And then technological development. So basically, technological development, we're talking about all these technological advances. Like even our class, our WebEx was not possible a couple of years ago, or a few years ago. Now we can have a real class in the virtual environment. That's technological development. Human resource management, managing the human resource, managing your staff and employees, and firm infrastructure. They're all part of the support activities. So far, are there any questions? And then we have the term margin at the very top. It implies organizations realize a profit margin that depends on their ability to manage the linkages between all activities in the value chain. In other words, the organization is able to deliver a product, service, and for which the customer is willing to pay more than the sum of the cost of all the activities in the value chain. So if you look at it carefully, you'll see that on top of that, the cost you incur in order to be able to basically create the product, you will the money you make, which is your revenue, is basically your margin, the margin that you have. So the value creating potential of primary activities. So let's talk about them again. Inbound logistics, we talked about it, is the activities used to receive, store, and disseminate inputs to products. And then operation activities necessary to convert the inputs that are shipped in by the inbound logistics to final products. Outbound logistics is the activities to send them out. And then marketing and sales activities completed to provide means through which customers can purchase products and to induce them to do the advertising, promotion, distribution channels. Service activities designed to enhance and maintain products' value. Each activity should be examined relatively to competitors' ability and rated as superior, equivalent, or inferior. So as you can see, when you are looking at the value chain, no, the procurement is actually support activity, because your main activity is the operation and all those. Procurement is a support activity because you want to do it in a cost-efficient way. That's just a strategy. So support activities are less important than primary activities for certain study. That's why procurement is under the support activities and not under the primary activities. And again, when it comes to value chain, you want to, when you compare your value chain with another company's value chain, you want to make sure you find out which abilities you're superior and which you're inferior. And if you want to win that competition, you want to make sure you do better in all those respects, especially your primary activities are very important. And support activities are a lot of times tools for you to better off in the long run. So procurement activities completed to purchase the inputs, produce a firm's product, raw materials, machines. So you want to make the purchase in a cost-efficient way. Technological development activities completed to improve, use the process equipment, basic research, human resource activities involved with recruiting, hiring, training, and compensating all the personnel. Okay, the value creating potential of primary activities, firm infrastructure, activities that support the work of the entire value chain, like general management, finance, and all that, effectively and consistently identifying external opportunities and threats, identify resourcing capabilities, support core competencies. So each activity should be examined relative to the competitor's ability and rated as superior or inferior again. Outsourcing. I want to leave it here. Let's do the task together, because outsourcing is a whole new concept. I don't want to confuse you with that. So your task here is, please give an example of each of the resources capabilities, core competencies, and discovering core competencies. Okay, so okay, please give an example from your own company for each of the resources, tangible and intangible, capabilities, core competencies. There's a typo here. Let me fix that again. Core competencies and discovering core competencies. So this is not homework, this is classwork. So please, we want to do it right now and discuss in the class. So right now, please start giving me examples of your own companies. What are your resources? Like even one example of each would do. So tangible, intangible, and then how you create capabilities, how you create core competencies, and how you discover new ones. So starts now. Just does everybody understand what's the question? Do you all understand? Okay. So just to start, please. You have a couple minutes, and then we'll discuss. Okay. So let's start from Mr. Faisal. Tangible office filings, employees, intangible information, competencies, good result, good outcome. Mr. Faisal, that's too general. By tangible resources, we will talk about your primitive machineries or whatever you use, like if you produce photo frames like the wood or plastic or glasses, those are your tangible and intangible. You're correct, your employees and stuff like that. And then for competencies and core competencies, please be more specific. What are the capabilities? Let's say turning those to basically you know, capabilities to turn those materials to products, and then how those are different from other companies. That's where your core competencies come in. So just general core competencies that everybody has is not necessarily the one we're looking for. And tangible resources, we have sophisticated equipment, okay, raw materials office, computer, good managers, Ms. Sami, Dr. Sami, yes, the classes are all the classes are recorded, so absolutely you can go ahead and view the recorded version, and they're all available to you. You're very welcome. Company financial resources, physical resources like properties, transportation, intangible resources. Your company have high intangible resources, for example, personnel. Okay, capabilities is a good. To use those resources in efficient, cost-effective way. Yeah, be more specific. The reason I give you career-specific examples because I want to get more specific answers rather than general. I mean, give us more detail. Our organizational or qualified staff. People usually have capacity to change new materials. Your products deliver very good. Our company core competencies to prepare policy, government, tangible office material, juice factory, machine. Yep. So far, my suggestion to you guys is, I mean, let's just review the whole concept of studying MBA and studying business strategy is supposed to help you guys be able to apply all of these to your career. So we are not going to memorize and just learn about some theories and then forget about them. The reason I give you these specific tasks is I want you to find exactly where it is located in your company. So when you exactly know what is your own resources and what's your capabilities and what's your core competencies, you would be able to do the same for any other company that you go to or to your future company that you own. So the whole idea is to be able to apply. And so your examples, I expect it to be more of a professional example, not just a theory. And so I require you and I want you to give me more specific answers. I don't want just a general. I don't want you to just give me general answers. So keep that in mind, and keep that in mind that what's the main purpose of this task is for you to be able to apply these theories. Okay, so we have Mr. Jawad, tangible vehicles, equipment, furniture, very good. Resources allocated, budget, project financial report, intangible facility, firm services, human resource, relationship with SMEs and trade industries, meetings, capability, interaction with SMEs, develop policies and strategies. Okay, core competency is provide gains, support SMEs, technical support, financial. Scoring code. Yours was a good example, Mr. Jawad, but you could still be more specific about it. And then, what do you mean by trying to start more practical works, Mr. Nuristani? I'm not sure if I understand what you mean. Could you explain what you mean by that? Oh, you mean like for your tasks, giving you case studies? Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We can give you like tasks, more of a case study next time. So maybe you'll use that, sure. And then working in aid sector, you have enough resources, tangible, intangible. You all understand the tangible resources, which is physical status, experience, personal, equipment, machinery, information. The company core competencies provides quality equipment and services at a good price to supply number of customers. Run. Yeah, I mean, these, don't get me wrong, Mr. Nuristani, these case studies, these examples that I'll ask you to do would be really practical for your work. I wish you would understand how practical it could be if you would really take it serious and would really try to follow the guidelines. Like when I ask you to give me examples of your own work, I mean, nothing is more practical than that. I mean, I'm asking you to apply all these theories to your own company. I mean, this is as practical as it can get. But if you like some case studies, I can give you case studies. That's not a problem. But it doesn't mean that this task is not practical. I mean, it's just a matter of a different perspective and different approach. But I still think this is the most practical, asking you guys to come up with your own company's example and apply all these. Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you case studies, so for sure. You cannot give me what I ask. Why is that, Mr. Nuristani? Why can't you give me what I ask? Yeah, maybe you want to talk over the microphone. Maybe we can understand you better. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Nuri. You want to talk over the microphone? Maybe we can understand your argument better. Oh, you mean, okay, you're talking about the time. I mean, yeah, it's just, I want a simple example of what you do. I don't want you to really, like, all I need is a very simple, let's say in worldwide science, right? In our university, like, I would say resources. If you ask me this question, I can just give you in a second the answer. The resources in worldwide science, we have intangible resources of the image of the company, of the skill set of the lecturers, you know, the facilities, and then the tangible is our WebEx, is our internet rules, and then capabilities is our capability to use all these resources and teach the MBA courses, our capability to present video clips, to show slides, and you know, to present lectures. This is capability. Core competency is how we do it different from other colleges. I mean, the advantage we give you is we focus on the practicality of the courses. We give you topics. We explain them in detail. We try to focus on the usefulness of the theories rather than a lot of schools just focus on the theory, and you as professionals need a program that helps you immediately apply those into your career. So our core competency is giving you and equipping you with a knowledge-based MBA that gives you the ability and the skill to perform successfully. And then discovering core competencies is how we discover to help you more the different skills, like you're working on that certain case, or I would say mini classes that are meant only for certain group of professionals that basically they can enroll in those mini MBA classes. So that's a new core competency. So you see, it's not that hard. It takes a couple minutes just to find out what you have in your company, and you know. So basically, the questions I give you is not complicated, and it's not that difficult to come up with your own example. I mean, and that is very easy. If I give you a case study, I should give you a half hour or 15 minutes to solve it in the class. I mean, that would be great homework. But in class, I want you to focus on the example and then try to understand how it works in your company. So I think that's the most doable in-class task that I could give you. You see what I mean? So I don't expect you to explain the theories that I was explaining all through the class for the past 1 hour and a half. I expect you to understand those and then apply it to your own company. I mean, that's very simple, and that I would say that's the only reason you're taking MBA courses. I mean, you're not taking MBA courses to just memorize some theories and solve some questions, and that's it. I mean, I would say you as professionals are looking for a class that helps you use these theories in your work. So what is better than just applying those to your work? What is better than finding out what is your core competencies? I mean, we can talk about core competency all day long until the cow comes home, but you would never be able to find out what is your own company's core competency. When your coworker asks you, you're taking MBA, what is it adding to your knowledge? What is the benefit of that MBA course for you? What do you have to tell them? I mean, if they ask you, okay, how can you apply this to our workplace? What would you say? What do you have to offer? I mean, at least with these examples, you're able to say, okay, suppose we are working in an NGO helping the Kabul, poverty to go on, to be removed. So the resources we have is the charity help we get from people. We have some government budget of, let's say, $20,000 a month. So that's our resources, our intangible resources that they're basically like the image of the company as a helping company, as an NGO, which is non-for-profit. And our capability is like you're able to use that money, run programs like marathon or some sportive games, and people will come and contribute even more. And our core competency is we go to the villages and help the villages right on the spot, and basically we ourselves get involved in doing it rather than just giving out the money. So you see how practical it could be. I mean, so rather than just memorizing some concepts, I think that's better. So, but if I give you a case, I'm sure you will learn from it. That will be a nice homework, but it is not you, using these theories in the class. So, I'm just saying. So, thank you, everyone. I hope that everyone enjoyed the class. Please remember to email me by email. Yeah, I want you to send me by email. Don't get me wrong. I want you to send me exactly what you're writing here by email. But keep that in mind. If you send it to me by email and you're totally not on the page and in the picture with regard to the assignment, I mean, we are trying, like when you write it down here, we are going to discuss it. We'll learn, like the first, if you look at, if you just scroll up and see what were the first examples that you gave me, and then as we discussed, like the next examples, they were more and more practical, they were better, and they were becoming better and better. So by the time you're emailing it to me, you already nailed it. You see what I mean? But if you just, if I just give it to you and you email it to me, we haven't discussed about it. You haven't argued, and I haven't argued back, and that discussion that makes the learning enjoyable has not happened. So that's what I like about tasks in the class and the discussions. Yeah, I will email it to you as well. I will email all these slides, today's slide to you today, and also please email me back the the tasks. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.